Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining the Smith & Williamson Sessions Making Tax Digital webinar. I'm Phil Palmer, a director in the business tax team in Smith & Williamson's London office. I focus on VAT matters, advising clients across all sectors. Making Tax Digital for VAT will be the first phase of HMRC's modernisation of the tax system, and consequently I've been involved with a range of clients to date, assessing the impact on their business.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sophie and I'm a manager in our London VAT team. Alongside advising my clients on the weird and wonderful that VAT has to offer, I also oversee our VAT compliance portfolio. So when looking at making tax digital, I can bring a practical insight.
Thanks, Sophie. As we'll come on to, software plays a major part in any business's MTD journey, which is why we're joined by TaxSystems this morning. TaxSystems are a leading tax compliance technology provider, and Carl will explain more about TaxSystems and specifically their MTD suite of software, AlphaVAT, later.
Thank you, Sunil. Just to introduce myself, my name's Carl Everard. I work within the account management team at TaxSystems. I've been with the business for over 6 years now, and my main role is working closely with our existing clients to make sure they're prepared for MTD. For those of you that haven't heard of TaxSystems before, our flagship product is AlphaVAT, which is our corporate tax compliance engine. We're one of the leading software specialists based in the UK and Ireland. Our AlphaVAT solution is used by 23 of the top 25 accountancy firms and over 40% of the FTSE 100 businesses. In terms of what our technology offers, we help businesses have a more efficient tax process in terms of collecting data all the way through to submitting data to HMRC to allow tax teams to spend more time adding value to their business and their clients. And to date, we've submitted over 141,000 entities using our product to HMRC.
Thanks, Carl. So the agenda for this morning will see us cover what MTD is and who is impacted, the timescale for the introduction of MTD for VAT, and specifically what changes will come in during the course of this year and what will be introduced next year, what you need to do between now and then to get ready, and what we're generally seeing our clients doing. Carl will then talk through the software side of things before we wrap up the session and open it up to questions from you. You can ask questions throughout using the participant panel on the right, and there will also be 3 polling questions throughout this webinar, and again, you can answer those using the participant panel on the right-hand side of your screen. So, just before we delve into what MTD is, I'm conscious there's a wide range of businesses on the call who are probably at different stages of their MTD planning. So I thought it'd be useful to start with a polling question on exactly that. So, as you can see, how much do you consider yourself to know about MTD? Have you got no or limited knowledge? Have you heard of it but not yet undertaken an impact assessment for your business and you're just really at the start of your journey? You've begun taking steps? Or finally, are you confident that you know what MTD is and that your business will be ready for the changes in both 2019 and 2020? Okay, thank you for that, and we should have the responses to that question as we go on. So, what is Making Tax Digital and who will this impact? Well, Making Tax Digital was first brought to the table by HMRC in 2015, and this was later formalised in a concept paper in July 2017. It brings about a digital transformation of the UK's tax system and aims at providing taxpayers with modern and streamlined systems to maintain their tax records, as well as a two-way digital correspondence interface with HMRC. This is very much in line with the global trend we're seeing, where an increasing number of tax authorities across the world are introducing more and more technology into their processes, with a common end goal of achieving real-time reporting. Making Tax Digital for VAT is the first phase of this digital revolution, and it's intended that other taxes, such as income tax and corporate tax, will follow. In respect of other taxes, there'll be a consultation period commencing for Making Tax Digital for corporation tax soon, so clearly it is at the forefront of HMRC's thinking. Making Tax Digital, the 3 fundamental strands to Making Tax Digital are capturing all transactions in a digital format and ideally specific record-keeping software, ensuring there's a digital link or journey of this data from start to finish, and the ability to send data digitally to HMRC through an API, an application program interface. The removal of manual intervention is aimed at reducing errors and mistakes made by taxpayers, which HMRC hope will significantly reduce the estimated tax gap of between £9 and £12 billion per annum. HMRC have also estimated that around £4 billion per annum of VAT is being lost in simple VAT mistakes and errors alone. So just before we apply this to VAT specifically, looking at the results to our poll that we did, it looks as if the majority of people have begun to take steps. Around 29% of people on this call have begun to take steps, but only 6% are confident that their business is ready for MTD. Around 3% have limited or no knowledge. If I think back to summer 18, when we started doing webinars on MTD, it's quite a significant change when we were finding that the 70–80% of people had very limited knowledge of it. So clearly in the last 6 to 9 months, businesses have come on, but there's still room before the deadlines which we'll come on to for businesses to implement some action. So just coming on back to the changes specifically in place for VAT. There are two key areas. Firstly, VAT returns will need to be compiled by pulling data from taxpayers' digital VAT accounts. And secondly, VAT returns will be submitted to HMRC digitally through an API-enabled product. Now, this may be embedded within your existing accounting software package, or it may be a bolt-on app or additional piece of software, for example, a bolt-on to Excel. And we'll talk more about this later. This submission through an API will be a mandatory change for the vast majority of businesses, and it's currently estimated that around 97% of VAT registrations submit their VAT returns online through the HMRC portal. Although this may often be referred to as electronic submission, it does not meet the requirements for making tax digital, as it involves manually typing the 9-box figures into the HMRC portal. There will be several fundamental areas of VAT compliance that won't change. The most important one being the current 9 boxes of headline data provided to HMRC will remain the same. The VAT return frequency, whether monthly, quarterly or annually, will also stay the same, as well as the return and payment deadline. Finally, a business's eligibility to account for VAT under a special scheme, such as a retail scheme, cash counting, flat rate scheme, will not change. It's important to highlight at this stage that making tax digital changes the way VAT returns will be submitted and the calculation process undertaken to get to these figures. It will not change the VAT technical position or the amount of VAT that should be payable or receivable. So MTD for VAT will become mandatory for all VAT return periods starting on or after 1 April 2019 for the majority of VAT registered businesses that are obliged to be registered. In reality, it broadly means businesses with a taxable turnover in excess of the compulsory registration threshold, which is currently £85,000 per annum. So, if you're VAT registered and submit quarterly returns on a calendar quarter stagger, i.e. VAT quarter ends March, June, September and December, the first relevant VAT return for MTD will cover the period 1 April to 30 June 2019, and this will need to be submitted digitally by 7 August 2019. There is, however, a delayed implementation for certain taxpayers, most of whom should now be notified by HMRC about this in writing. And this will be the first VAT return starting on or after 1 October 2019. There are several niche areas covered by this deferral, but the key ones affecting taxpayers are VAT groups and divisions, businesses making payments on account, and those businesses that are VAT registered in the UK but established overseas. For those VAT registered businesses trading below the 85k threshold, making tax digital will be optional, not mandatory, from April 2019, but it is possible, if not likely, that this will change in the future. Finally, the exceptions to MTD will be limited. For example, due to insolvency, on religious grounds, or practicality considerations such as not having access to an internet connection. Taxpayers should be aware that businesses claiming exemption will be required to provide evidence to HMRC, so this should be considered in good time. I'll now pass over to Sophie, who'll discuss each aspect of MTD for VAT in a little more detail.
Thanks, Sunil, and I'd like to start my portion with another poll. I think it's really important to understand your current process to know how the three key elements of MTD will impact you. So if you could use the poll on the right-hand side, what is your current VAT return process? Are you using spreadsheets, either self-made or being downloaded from the accounting system and then making a VAT return and submitting via the portal? Do you use spreadsheets for certain calculations, maybe fuel scale charge adjustment, but can use your accounting system or another third-party software to submit the return? Do you prepare and submit everything within your ERP, or do you use a separate VAT compliance tool? While we wait for the poll results, I'll move on to the first requirement of MTD, which is digital record keeping. So the list on the screen comes from the HMRC notice on MTD, and these are the records that you're required to keep digitally. Most of these you're probably keeping already in some form or another, and if you use an accounting system, you may have most of them digitally. I'd say some of the newer things will be the transaction by transaction, the 5th and 6th bullet points on the list. And I would stress now that these don't have to be kept in one piece of software. You can have some in spreadsheets, some in your accounting system. As long as they're kept digitally, you'll be compliant. The next requirement is the digital audit trail. So from the digital records that we just spoke about through to the VAT return submission, there should be a seamless audit trail of data with minimal or no manual intervention, which means if you use multiple packages, which I can see from the poll, most people use spreadsheets for their VAT return preparation. If you're getting the data from your accounting system, there should be a digital link between the two pieces of software. So what does that mean? It means either exporting the data or using a piece of linking software. You can't copy and paste the information out or just type things into your spreadsheet from the accounting system. That wouldn't be allowed. And the final one is the API submission. So 42% of the poll are using the online portal to submit their VAT returns. That will not be possible if you are if you need to do MTD compulsorily. So you'll need to have a piece of software that's API enabled to submit the VAT return. HMRC can't see past your 9 boxes with the API. They will only see the 9-box VAT return that you submit. So if you're currently using the portal, you'll need to think of a solution for submitting your VAT return. This could be a separate VAT software or a piece of bridging software, which Carl will demonstrate later. Now, obviously, there are a lot of changes to be made, and I think most people agree the most difficult is the digital links and audit trail. So there will be a soft landing until April 2020, where there will be reduced penalties if your digital links are not quite there, as long as you're trying. I would stress, though, that if you're deferred implementation to October 2019, this doesn't also defer your soft landing. So it will definitely be April 2020.
Thank you, Sophie. So just before we go into the software side of things in a bit more detail, I thought it'd be useful just to quickly highlight the sort of work we're doing to assist clients. Firstly, if you're a VAT compliance client of S&W and we currently submit your VAT returns on your behalf, there's little change to this process, certainly for this year. We're ready to submit VAT returns under MTD. The only change you may see is, in order to be compliant with the 2020 changes, there may be small process changes in the way we process your information and potentially the way this data is sent to us. And we'll be discussing this on a case-by-case basis with all of our clients during the course of this year. In respect of our non-VAT compliance clients, we've generally been advising clients through workshops and training, as well as various forms of MTD readiness assessments. The exact phases undertaken have really been dictated by the level of complexity of a client's VAT affairs. However, at a high level, This generally involves reviewing the client's current VAT processes and confirming the areas that need to change in order to be MTD compliant. We produced a gap analysis report of our findings and advised on the potential solutions to any areas that they need to focus on. From a practical experience to date, the two areas that taxpayers are most concerned about have been understanding the technology required, both the API part and also what solutions are available on the market for the more automated VAT return calculation software, and ensuring that any process changes are both reliable and workable on a day-to-day basis. While some clients are focused on the API submission of the VAT return, and so the 2019 changes, if you want to call them that, given the lead time that's often involved with process changes and certainly software implementation, many have found it much more efficient to look at both the 2019 and 2020 changes at the same time. Furthermore, when looking at MTD, we have commonly identified various efficiency and some resulting in financial improvement to the VAT return process for clients, so it can be advantageous if MTD is considered from a holistic viewpoint and an opportunity as opposed to just yet another compliance requirement that must be met. In respect of software solutions, for most businesses, it's generally been a three-step approach to MTD software. Firstly, do you have software that's able to submit VAT returns to HMRC via an API? Next is to consider the level of manual intervention in the VAT return process and review any digital links. Finally, for many VAT-registered businesses, compliance with MTD will be best achieved through automated VAT return calculation software. Just before I hand over to Carl, who will demonstrate some of those software solutions, the final polling question of the morning, and that is regarding your understanding of the software options available to taxpayers currently on the market. So, do you have little or no knowledge of the software options? Do you have an awareness of what packages are out there, but you've not yet made a decision? You're discussing software options with providers and seen demos possibly of this software? Or finally, you've comfortably exhausted all avenues of research and have already chosen a package that will suit your MTD needs.
Thank you, Sunil. So before I get onto my demonstration, I just want to spend a short time discussing the process for your VAT return in terms of what your process looks like now and how that may change throughout 2019 into 2020. So from speaking to a lot of our existing clients and from looking at the poll results, hopefully this provides you with a very high level overview of your process at the moment. In terms of, you have your financial data in an accounting system. At the moment, you're then rekeying or copying and pasting that data into an Excel document where you're spending your time making your relevant adjustments to get to your 9 boxes, and that data is then rekeyed in to the HMRC portal. So from April 19 or from October 19, this process will need to change. However, the first point to note is with the process change, the Excel file you currently use to draft your VAT return doesn't need to change in that first period or that first year. What will need to change is how you take that data and submit it to HMRC. So this is where our solution comes in, called AlphaVAT. The way our solution works is it allows you to link the 9 boxes of your existing spreadsheet. That data will then be submitted through the API to HMRC. At the same time, we will provide you with a log-on to a portal where you will have full visibility of your entities. You'll then be able to look at each individual entity to look at previous MTD submissions, VAT payments, VAT liabilities, and all of your future obligations. If you look at the diagram on the screen over towards the left-hand side, after the soft landing period, you then have to consider how you digitally link your data from your source data all the way through to HMRC. So during the soft landing period, you can still rekey in data into your Excel file. However, from April 2020, you'll need to ensure you maintain a digital link from your source data into your Excel file. So for those of you that are already taking automated reports out of your financial system, which are linking to Excel, and you're not copying and pasting, that is okay. That will keep you compliant from April 2020. However, if you are copying and pasting and you need to maintain a digital link, we have a solution in the market called AlphaLink. The way that technology works is it allows you to connect to the transactional data from your accounting system, retrieve all of the information you require for your VAT return, and that data will be stored on a portal. This will then allow you to link that data directly to your Excel workings, where you can then use AlphaBridge to submit that directly to HMRC. Having said that, speaking with a lot of our existing client base, a lot of clients are using MTD as an opportunity to overhaul their VAT return process and implement improvements and efficiency improvements along the way. Therefore, there's a great need or a great request from a lot of our clients to move away from Excel altogether. And due to that, we've actually developed a solution called AlphaVAT. So AlphaVAT the first version will be released later this month. And this will allow you to remove the need of Excel altogether. It will allow you to use a solution like AlphaLink, or again, other reporting systems can feed in to AlphaVAT. It will allow you to pull and bucket the transactional data and fully prepare your VAT return within the compliance engine. This will then allow you to submit directly to HMRC. You'll also see on the screen, not only can you take the transactional data from AlphaLink and feed it into AlphaVAT. As you're aware, we already have a CT compliance engine called AlphaTax. VAT is the first tax to be made digital. Corporate tax will follow at some stage. So in terms of how our technology fits together, those of you that are using AlphaLink, that transactional data not only can feed into your VAT return process, you can use that same information to feed into your corporate tax process where you're using AlphaTax, or feed that data directly to your advisor who are using AlphaTax to keep you compliant on the corporate tax side as well. So what I want to do now is just jump into a demonstration to show you our portal in action in terms of how you can set up entities and how you can submit directly to HMRC. So I've just logged into our AlphaBridge portal. So as standard, we have two-factor authentication. So when you have your username and password to log in, you'll also attach your login to a landline or a mobile phone to make sure it's a secure login. When you get to the main screen, you will have a list of your entities that you'll set up and that you'll need to prepare VAT returns for. On the left-hand side, you have a menu so you can manage your users and add additional users within your organisation. And we have a help menu with documentation, help videos. We also have a free support line to assist with any queries you may have. So on the main screen, you'll have your obligations listed in terms of the next return that is due for submission. What I'm going to do now is take you through the process of adding an entity all the way through to submission. So to add an entity, you'll give the entity a name. In order to demonstrate the software, we have a sandbox environment with HMRC, and we simply have some dummy credentials. So I'm going to complete the entity with the dummy credentials that we already have, but you will obviously have your own VAT registration number. I'll get into it later, but we also have a facility to create demo entities. So this allows you to replicate the process from start to finish, setting up the links that you require for submission. However, the data will never go through to HMRC. So for those of you that aren't eligible for the pilot or don't necessarily want to join the pilot with HMRC, but you still would like a solution to test the process ahead of mandatory deadlines, that facility is available. So in this example, I'll put in my details. I'm going to add and authorize this entity. So this is a standard requirement from HMRC. When you initially set up the entity, you have to authorize the solution to send and receive data to HMRC. So on our portal, we have a direct link to the HMRC site, and all you will need to do is use your standard government gateway login details, put in your username and password. Once you click sign in, you then simply have to select grant authority. This isn't required every quarter or every month. It's a one-off process when you initially do your first submission, and once you grant authority, it will be valid for 18 months. Once you've granted authority, it will take you straight back to the portal page where you can finish, and you have confirmation that you've granted authority, and that entity will then be showing. The data you see here is provided directly from HMRC, so this will be your following return. So the next step is to simply download the AlphaBridge template. Once you click on the download link, you'll see we have a template which is opened up towards the bottom of the screen here. So we'll just open this up. It's a simple Excel file. As you can see, it's a single tab which will contain the 9 boxes for submission and the details that we've pulled through from the portal. Right at the start, I mentioned that you can keep your existing VAT spreadsheet as it is, no need to change it. So just as an example here, I have an example VAT return. This would be your current calculations. It doesn't have to be in this format, but this is just a visual representation of what your spreadsheets may look like. Different tabs across the bottom with the relevant adjustments. And as long as you have the 9 boxes on your spreadsheet somewhere, that's all you need. They don't have to be on one tab or in this format. Once you have your spreadsheet, I'm just going to split my screen here. To set up the digital link to the API, all you need to do is by using the equals key on your keyboard, select the box, find the relevant box on your spreadsheet, and press enter. You don't require any complicated implementation. It's simply a 20-second process to set up these links. And that's all you have to do. So in this example, we've got 2 separate spreadsheets. We have our existing spreadsheet on the left-hand side, and we now have our AlphaBridge template, which contains the 9 boxes to HMRC. You can keep both of these spreadsheets separately if you wanted to. However, there's also a facility to copy this spreadsheet, this tab, to your existing workbook. So what this allows you to do is copy the tabs and the links to your existing spreadsheet. So as you can see here, this is the spreadsheet we had earlier. But it now has a final tab being your AlphaBridge return. Once you've set up the links as we have done here, all you need to do is select Post AlphaBridge portal. What this will do is redirect you back to the AlphaBridge portal. Only the 9 boxes will be linked. All of the underlying data and calculations remain on your system. And once you're happy to submit, you click the Submit Return button, confirm the declaration that the information is correct and complete, and select Submit. This will submit directly to HMRC, and you'll receive a confirmation that it's been successfully e-filed, and the receipt ID along with the submission details will be stored on the portal for future reference. So as you can see, the first steps of MTD are very straightforward. That allows you to stay compliant from April 19 throughout the soft landing period and use an API to submit directly to HMRC. I briefly want to show you how AlphaLink works in this process. For those of you that also want to stay compliant after the soft landing period, who may still be copying and pasting data into Excel. So a very similar process to as we followed earlier. You set up the entity, but this time we select AlphaLink template. Again, we download the link, as you can see at the bottom of the screen here. And the spreadsheet looks very similar to what you would have seen before. We have the 9 boxes and the details from the portal. However, we have a few additional tabs. The second tab here, again, it's just an example of a VAT return. So this would be your existing VAT spreadsheet in terms of your existing calculations and your workings. We then have the first tab, which is the transaction data. So this is the data that we're going to populate through AlphaLink. So aside from the spreadsheet, all we have an accounting system on our machine. We have an AlphaLink connector, which has been downloaded and configured to read the data from that accounting package. We currently have about 310 different connectors that are live at the moment, and we're always adding to this list. The installation takes about 5-10 minutes, and once that is done, you don't have to reconfigure anything moving forward. So once that's been installed and you download the template, you simply click on the AlphaLink button. This will run a query to retrieve all of the transactional data from your accounting system. So this will replace the reporting that you're doing at the moment, and if you're copying and pasting data from that system, this process replaces that altogether. You can see the transactional data that we have on the screen here, and the relevant tabs and identifiers across the top. You can then use this information to link it to your existing calculation spreadsheets. Just as before, this has been linked through the 9 tabs at the bottom, and then you click Post to AlphaBridge Portal, which takes you back to the portal page to submit. So that's an example of both AlphaLink and AlphaBridge working together. They don't have to be used together, but I just want to show you an example of how they do fit together. And finally, before I finish, I just wanted to show you an example of a demo entity that I mentioned. So if you set up any demo entities, it will be marked with the demo option on the left-hand side of the name here. Whether you're going live or whether it's a demo entity, you can drill into that entity. So not only can you see your future obligations, you can look at any previous submissions under MTD, which will provide you the 9 boxes and when the submission was completed. You'll also have an ability to look at any payments and liabilities. So if we go to the payments and liabilities tab, you can see all of the liabilities and payments for that particular entity and the period it relates to. And if you want to look at either the liabilities or payments separately, you have different tables along here as well. That's a very high-level overview of our existing portal using both AlphaBridge and AlphaLink to stay compliant for MTD. I've just got one final slide to show you, really to give you an understanding of how developments are moving with AlphaVAT. So AlphaVAT will be the compliance engine which will replace the Excel element altogether. It will still be accessed via our single portal as you've seen today. So if I go back to the screen, bear with me. So in terms of our AlphaVAT roadmap, as you saw today, based on the current release, we've got that standard portal allowing you to set up demo entities, to replicate the process, and our system's currently live. So any of you that do want to use the system, if you're part of the pilot, you can use the system to submit directly to HMRC. This will then allow you to view any payments, liabilities on the dashboard. At the end of this month, we will be releasing the core calculation engine, which will have VAT legislation built in to the system. We'll also be improving the organisational management of the system, allowing you to replicate the structure of your business within the portal to give you better visibility in terms of how the entities fit together, and you'll also be able to bespoke the branding if it's of interest. Then later on in the year, again before MTD is mandatory, we'll be having our main legislation release. So this is where we'll have a extensive coverage of VAT legislation within the product, that we will be continuing to add to throughout the year. This includes adjustments such as the special partial exemption. We'll then be adding additional user roles to allow not only for you to have admin users on your system, but to be able to provide access to other users around the organisation, some with different management roles. So if you have internal sign-off procedures, you can replicate this directly in the system. I hope that was of interest. I'll pass back over to Sunil.
Thank you, Carl. So just before we go into some of the questions that have been raised, I hope this last 30 minutes or so has been helpful for those that needed a bit of better understanding of MTD. I think it's interesting looking at the last polling question, that I think where a lot of businesses are now at the stage that they know that MTD will impact them. They know when the rules come in and they've got a good idea of what those rules are. However, they appear to be at a stage where they need more information on the software side of things and the options that are out there for them. So hopefully Carl's demonstration of software possibly put some fears to bed about the level of complexity of the API side of things, and that it can be a relatively straightforward exercise to submit VAT returns, but also a brief look into the future as well in terms of the 2020 changes and the sort of automation software out there. I know that we should have a demo version of AlphaVAT available very soon, Carl, so yes, please do get in touch if that's of help to run through that product as well. I'm just going to check how many questions we do have in. It may be easy to answer these by themes, I think. One theme we've had a couple of questions, and it probably relates back to Sophie's side of things when we went into rules in a bit more detail. But certainly people are interested in, are there any adjustments that are made that don't have to have a digital link in any way? And in terms of adjustments generally, we've dealt with a lot of businesses, and the most common ones that come up are, say, partial exemption, fuel scale charges, when you're making amendments to the VAT return for, say, business entertainment. And some of those, it is possible to make those adjustments outside of the digital links, outside of VAT return calculation software. However, what we're generally advising as a starting point, and it links back in with that point about efficiencies and benefits, is to try and make as many of those as automated as possible. So yes, there may be some adjustments that can be made as a manual add-on, but to try and automate as many of those as possible in the first place, and where it's not possible to automate those, for example, your existing accounting software, to then look at adding those in. We've also got a question about timing. A question about, for example, if you're in the process of moving your ERP system, which will go live in, say, early 2020. So is there anything that can be done in the meantime? Would HMRC allow that? Generally speaking, no, but we have dealt with some clients that, for whatever reason, for example, a client is merging with another one, so there is a large project underway. And I would say that given the availability of API software out there and bridging software, I would concentrate on getting some bridging software that enables you to submit under MTD for 2019, and then so possibly delay looking at your overall position for the 2020 changes. But certainly you should look into getting some bridging software so that you're compliant from either April or October, depending on when your implementation date is.
We've also got a question here in terms of how AlphaLink works. Whether if you've got a group and multiple accounting systems, does AlphaLink cope with that? And that's one of the main reasons and the main usage for AlphaLink, where you may have a number of different accounting systems and the data is in different sources. The way AlphaLink would work is you have a connector for each of those entities, and they may be on different accounting systems. The system will then take that information and provide you and allow you to link that either consolidated into Excel or a breakdown of each individual entity. So yes, it can cope with multiple accounting systems and consolidate the data quite easily. And one other note I mentioned, I talked about the demo entities that you can set up on the system. Just to make it clear, in terms of our Alpha Bridge licensing, what we're currently offering clients of Smith & Williamson at the moment is, if Alpha Bridge is a solution you want to proceed with, we are offering a initial free trial to start with. So the live license will only go live when MTD becomes mandatory. So in your case, if it is either April or October, that is when the live license will kick in. However, we'll provide you with early access to the system, so ahead of that time you can have full access, you can use the system to join the pilot, or set up demo entities to make sure you're prepared ahead of the mandatory deadlines. A few of you have also asked actually the cost of Alpha Bridge. So we have different pricing models for Alpha Link, Alpha Bridge and AlphaVAT. So it's probably worthwhile touch on that at a later date, but to give you some visibility in terms of the pricing of Alpha Bridge, it's broken down into two elements. So we have access to the portal, which will be £650 per annum, and then per VAT registration number, so whether this is a group or a single entity, it will be £100 per VAT registration number for the full year. If any of you have further questions or like specific quotes, please let us know afterwards and we can go through that with you directly.
And also likewise, there are a couple of questions which are some fairly specific questions we've got in about people's adjustments. That may not be relevant for everyone on the call, but again, we will get a list of those and try and follow up where there's something more specific to your business and put your minds at rest with some of that. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining. I hope that was helpful both in terms of what MTD is and also on the software side. As we said, please don't hesitate at all to get in contact with either ourselves at S&W or with Carl at TaxSystems on the software side of things. And that's it from us. Thank you.